We started in 1936, 1937, and that's when the data record goes back. But we didn't have SNOTEL sites. SNOTEL is our primary data collection method nowadays, right? Automated. You see all the data online. Has anybody used our data online? No? Almost all of our data is entirely public, so you can get it online. As a matter of fact, I've got some screen captures on my phone to just kind of show where the site's at. But all of our data, 99.9% of it you can get online, real time, the SNOTEL. Prior to the SNOTEL sites, SNOTEL started in about 1980 en masse. We were developing the network in the 1970s, the first few sites, but really the first major SNOTEL sites started in 1979, 1980, 1981. Prior to that, we used these snow tubes. And actually today, we still do use them for record longevity. I was out on Monday just measuring two sites over here. And we still measure about 60 to 70 sites in Colorado using this old method. The old method is tried and true, especially in a year like this year, where the SNOTELs are not providing the best context. We're so low with even the longest SNOTELs that we're below the minimum in the period of record, which is like 47 years. You can go back to 1981, which is a low year. So that's when these come in extra handy. So what you do is you take, I'm not going to do it because it takes a second, try to save a little bit of time, but you put these tubes together as deep as your snow is. You put the snow tube in the snow, you read the snow depth, you pull it out, and when you pull it out, there's a tiny, tiny little lip in there that actually will keep an entire like 20-foot column of snow in there. And so when you're pulling it out, you pull that entire column of snow, and then you come over to the scale here, and you weigh the weight of your tube and core, and then you say, okay, it's, 88 inches, right? And then you remove that snow from the tubes, and then you weigh it with the empty weight and say it's like 30. And all you do is you take 80 minus 30, and we now have 50 inches of water that we literally measured. So if you melted that down, you'd have 50 inches of water.
Nice.
In that case. Of course, 50 inches is super high for even here. So I shouldn't be complaining with values. Right now we're looking at like 3 inches of water.
Nope.
But Colorado is a pretty dry state, right? So, and then what we do is we repeat that process at like 5 to 10 sample points at each snow course. You're measuring at the exact same location every month, every year, year after year for 80 plus years in some cases, right?
How are those locations determined?
That's a wonderful question. For the most part, you want to put the snow courses and the SNOTELs in places where you're going to have a seasonal snowpack, right? Right. And so then those locations, the locations are actually picked to be representative of the greater area, right? Because just like I said, you're going to take the SNOTEL, you're going to take that snow course, and you're going to correlate it. You're going to create a relationship with the stream gauge down below, right? So do I want to put a site, up in the Alpine over here? No, probably not, because a lot of the snow, a lot of the water holding capacity of the mountains, particularly here, does not come from above tree line, just because it's so dry and cold here that it almost always blows off. The only time you really wind up having snowpack above tree line is in the spring when you have wetter storms. Like, I mean, you can, from where I live, I can always look up at Long's Peak or, Bierstadt and all the other ones, and I can just see that like it really doesn't get plastered with snow until like April, maybe March, in a warm year. This year may be different, but even still, I bet you most of this is going to blow off above tree line just because it's so cold here. Now, if you're talking about Pacific Northwest, that's a little bit different. So anyway, I went on a little bit of a rant about above tree line there. The trees are where they are for a reason, because one, it's not windy, and because that's the snow holding capacity. And so almost all of our sites, we are in trees for exactly that reason. We don't want to be wind impacted, because if there's no snow there, then you don't have any water, right? And so primarily it's to create a good correlation between the stream gauge and the site, but it's also to be representative of what the greater area is, so that it is creating a good relationship. Does that help?
Yep. Thank you.
In the last decade or so, there's a number of sites where we've had 90% mortality, and the Forest Service rifled in and take all that out. We don't want the dead standing. This one's not leaning the way of the site, but oftentimes the trees will lean the way of the site, and then it poses a hazard. At some point it's going to fall, so we actually have to take those trees down ourselves, right? So anyway, yes, being in a protected area is really important. I mean, go to an area much bigger than that parking lot, a pass like that, and it's going to blow right out, right? Here, we're in the trees. They were saying winds of 40 to 55 today. It wasn't quite that in the past there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they kicked up. But the winds don't get that crazy down here. We do have some wind sensors at our sites, at some of our sites, like we do here. Not all sites do, but while the winds above the treetops might get to 55-mile-an-hour gusts, it will rarely ever get to that in the trees. But as soon as something like this gets clear cut or beetle kill or whatever, we've had entire sites or fire. We've had entire sites records changed or completely eradicated. You just can no longer associate it with the normals, right? So that's why in some cases we don't have normals on sites, because the current snow accumulation characteristics are not normal. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
You run into one of these in the backcountry? Nice. Okay. So this is a SNOTEL site. Like when I either go hunting or even just backcountry skiing, sometimes, I usually know where the sites are. I have run into one or two in Wyoming that I didn't expect. I kind of did, but that I'd run into. So there's a lot of them. There's 950 SNOTEL sites in the Western United States, 114 SNOTELs in Colorado, and 118 automated data collection sites in Colorado.
Are there any in the Eastern United States?
Yes, but not SNOTELs in terms of the federal program. There are, like New York has a state program, New Hampshire and Vermont have state programs. But Congress did allocate us $2 million this year to do a study to put in a SNOTEL network in the East. And we are currently doing the investigation. So maybe in the next few years, we'll have to see where exactly Congress goes with that and the feasibility. We got to build up the network and have staff to maintain it. And all that fun stuff, all the administrative stuff, So the snow pillow is a scale, and I call it a pillow because it is a 10-foot diameter bladder, hypalon or polypropylene bladder that sits about 3 inches deep, filled with alcohol and water. And it is literally just a scale filled with water. And then from the bottom of that, underneath the ground, is a tube that runs up into our shelter there, into a manometer tube. I'm not sure if you know what a manometer tube is. It's just a standpipe of water or of fluid. And as something weighs down on that scale there, the fluid in the manometer increases, right? And I'll open it up and I'll show you. It's super duper simple. The best part about it is, no matter how wide I made this bladder, as long as it's like wider than 6 feet, principally, even if it was less than 6 feet, no matter how much snow weighed up on top of it, even if it was 100 feet wide, I'd still have a vertical unit or a vertical unit of water. So if I have 10 inches of water in weight of snow on top of that pillow, it will register 10 inches inside that manometer. No matter if it's 100-foot diameter, 1,000-foot diameter, if I had 50 inches of water on that snow in that pillow on top of it, it would show 50 inches in that manometer tube. It is an unbelievably simple technology that we've been technically employing since about 1970. We started testing it then, and it works exceptionally well. We have been testing all kinds of other water equivalent. Snow water equivalent is SWE. We affectionately call it SWE, snow water equivalent, SWE. We've tested load cells with electronics and all kinds of stuff, and it just does not do anywhere near as good a job as this does. There's other radar systems out there that are a bit more power hungry, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. We haven't really gotten into those, but This technology is really, really good. Has its drawbacks, but to this point, doing this for 23 years and even looking back at the data since the 70s, there's no sensor I'd rather have than that fluid-based weighing gauge.
Nice.
So this is our MET tower, and we have 4 sensors on this tower. This one with the blue kind of mounting arm is the snow depth sensor. Okay, so it senses how deep the snow is between that sensor and the ground, right? And we have it sitting over that snow pillow because we want to know exactly what the snow depth is on top of the pillow, right? That way we can actually get density.
Yeah.
We all know what density is, right? Weight over volume, right? So that way we not only have snow depth, but we have snow density and snow water equivalent. The sensor is really pretty simple. It's a little on the pricier side, but every minute, if you're kind of quiet, you can hear it click. And what it's doing is it's sending a sound pulse, reflecting it off the snow surface and re-receiving. The amount of time it takes for that signal to bounce back, it then does the calculations and figures out that distance. And then, of course, you subtract the difference, right? So we know what the standard distance is between the sensor and the pillow, and then you just subtract the difference and you know what the snow is. Super duper simple.
Is that pillow visible in the summertime?
Yep.
It is?
Yep.
So how do you keep it from being damaged and stuff like this? Does it puncture if a limb were to come down?
Yep. Yep, it will. Great question. We've gone through a number of different iterations on that kind of stuff. It used to be we would put sheet metal on top of it. The main problem that we used to have is bears. Bears would love to get into it, sometimes varmints, but our Canadian counterparts employed chain link. They put chain link down flat over the pillow, and they told us that they had been having luck with it. We tried it in Montana, and I personally was like, there's no way this is going to work. I don't know what this Canadians are talking about. And we did it, and it worked like a charm.
Wow.
Like before employing it here in Colorado, where we now have chain link over all of our pillows, we would have 10 to 15 bear attacks a year, or bear damages a year, and we'd have to replace 15 of those a year.
Oh man.
And now it's maybe 1 a year. I don't know what it is. I almost want the grizzly bear testing facility in West Yellowstone to like tell us why. Some people speculate that the bears don't like having the chain link in their pads.
Yeah.
But
It's like when you put, like, you don't want your cat jumping on something and you put tinfoil on the counter. You've ever seen those?
I have yet to do that. My wife and I have talked about it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
It does work.
Yeah.
It does? Okay. I will try it. So that has worked from a bear standpoint, but yeah, you know, when trees come down, it will puncture if it gets beyond the chain link, which often it does.
And does the chain link remain in the winter, or you remove it for winter?
It remains in the winter. Yep. Yep, that's one of the best parts about it. So, and then there's all kinds of other things. You know, sometimes you get ant hills, and sometimes the ants find a way to actually bite through that pipeline, or you know, other things. Varmints will get on under there. We try to do our best, but it doesn't always work. But yeah, those kinds of practical or realistic, real-world situations is exactly what we're doing at all times. Wonderful question. Okay, so that's the snow depth sensor. That's a wind sensor. It's wind direction and speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The top is for speed, and then the fin does direction. CAIC will kind of use that data for sites that are near tree line, but they're not using it for true on what's the wind direction. They're using it for like, okay, what's the wind speed below tree line? And then they're really using their sites above tree line to really predict, you know, what slopes are going to be the biggest concern. But wind helps us with our data editing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some sites where, like on a day like today, you'll have a windy day, you'll build up snow, and then afterward, if there's a steep enough pressure gradient, it'll actually blow some of the snow off the pillow, right? And those are the kinds of things that we're watching. All of these data sites are edited by a human between once a day and once a week. So we do still have to go through all these data parameters and make sure they're correct. But for the most part, they lie. They do a great job of collecting the data without much of our help. And then finally, the 2 other pieces of equipment here on the back side are air temperature temperature sensors. We have both our old generation temp sensor and our new generation air temperature sensor here. So, and then other sensors that we will put out on the Met Tower: relative humidity, which also has another temperature sensor. We have a few sites with a snowpack temperature profile, so every 20 centimeters it has a sensor and it'll tell you what the temperature is. That's a sensor that we're testing out, but it hasn't been working out too great as of late. What other sensors are built there? Oh, solar radiation. I don't know if you all are in the modeling or anything, but we'll do net radiation, so long wave, short wave, incoming and outgoing on both sides. At some sites. All right, that's kind of what I got for this area. You guys have any questions about this?
Pretty cool.
Okay. So this guy is our precipitation gauge. So this captures all forms of precipitation: snow, rain, sleet, and so we call it the precip gauge, or you'll affectionately hear me call it the can, precip can. It's aluminum. And if you can see more of these fins, we call it a rocket gauge because it looks like it would be a rocket.
Yeah.
Right? But it's got this like silly leafy thing on it. Anybody want to guess what that thing is?
Like collecting the water?
Or directing it.
Yeah, so today's kind of you're right. This is today's a kind of a good day. We could see the winds are coming from this direction. We're really swirling around here today more than anything, but you can tell by the anemometer that the winds are coming from this direction. And this thing is called an alter shield. It is meant to alter the wind. It's meant to slow it down. So rain's one thing. It falls a bit more straight than snow does. But when you get snow, it's a lot lighter and it's more impacted by the wind. Without this alter shield, the snow will hit the face of the precip can, and then you'll get an updraft that will actually prevent the snow from falling in. Right? This altered that a little bit. Actually, it alters it a lot. So they try and stop the wind, slow the wind, stop the wind. But when you have a big windstorm during a big storm, you definitely see the precip fall in the can. Right? I can kind of see some rounds hitting it right now. But there's a number of different phenomena that go on in these cans for a number of different reasons, from warm snow sticking to a number of other things. There's all kinds of fun things that can happen with this. The alter shield is mainly, it's most effective in dry climates, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming. But when you get to like northern Idaho, Oregon, Washington, they don't even put these things on there, because what winds up happening, your snow is so wet and warm, it sticks to this. It'll stick to the alter shield, and it'll stick to the outside of here, and you'll get these mushroom caps that will just, like, I mean, in some cases they'll get huge. I mean, I've seen mushroom caps on top of these shelters like 6-7 feet high, 8 feet high. I've seen ones on here 4 to 6 feet high. And then you see it in the data, you got to go knock it off, and then you got to edit the data for what you think wound up happening, which is not too hard to do when you have a pillow to help you. We use the precipitation sensor and pillow sensor to kind of help guide us when editing. But this is the same thing. It's a storage gauge, and it stores the precipitation over the course of the year. Again, there's a pipe that is connected to this thing that goes underneath and into the shelter, and it just runs on a standpipe, or that manometer gauge. So precip gauge, really important, so we know how much rain we're getting, and so we know how much precip we're getting, and to help correlate with what's going on in the soil. This is our telemetry tower. Houses the solar panels and the antenna. In this case, the antenna is a tiny little cell antenna there on that little platform. Back when I started, we used to do everything through something called meteor burst communication, and you take a signal and reflect it off the ionosphere, and then it's re-received at a master station. But we don't do that anymore. It was becoming quite costly. So now we use either cell, if we have a signal, or we use GOES satellite technology to stationary satellites. At some sites, I can't remember, I think we'll get in there and we'll see. At some sites we have soil moisture sensors. And they're often placed somewhere near the pillow, since that's our main kind of sensor, just to kind of keep all of our sensors kind of together. But those soil moisture sensors are often at 4, 8, and 20 inches of depth below the surface. We try to get a 40-inch sensor in as well, and some places have a 2-inch depth sensor. They measure soil moisture as a percent of volume, soil temperature, real dielectric constant, and salinity at each one of those depths. And they take a while to maintain, or to kind of get a good record, but once they're in, they're usually pretty good. Any questions on sensors?
A lot of data coming out of this little spot.
Every single one of our sites based out of this office is on solar. None of our sites are on line power, and we don't use wind to power any of our sites. There's a few sites in Oregon and Idaho, I think, that are on wind power, but pretty much everything else is on solar. And I forgot to mention that out of our office here in Lakewood, we maintain 184 sites. We manage all the SNOTEL sites in all of New Mexico, all of Colorado, all of Arizona, and all of southern Wyoming. And right now we're just 5 people. We should be back to 7 soon.
So what percentage of your time do you spend traveling? If everything at those states?
In the field, when we're 3/4 staffed, I'd say we spend about 40% of our time. I mean, and most of our time is spent in the summer. We don't want to go to the sites in the winter because, one, we don't want to disturb the snow.
Yeah.
2, it's just a lot harder to get to in the winter. I mean, don't get me wrong, we love snowmobiling for sure, but it's a lot easier. I mean, we'll get 7 to 10 sites done in a week, and we're just cranking through them. Go to one site, hop back in the truck, drive, go to, maybe hop in the UTV, drive to another site, do that site, and then you stay in a hotel for the night. So best part is we all love traveling. We all love being in the mountains. Like, we really love what we do. When you come across somebody who doesn't really love this, it's pretty evident.
Yeah.
Pretty quick. So, and because we still transmit in the middle of the night, we collect and transmit in the middle of the night, we need batteries, right? To store some of that solar energy from the day. So we do use batteries, as you can see on the floor. You guys are welcome to kind of gather around. If you want to do like 2 at a time, that'll work too. However you want to do it. I'm just going to kind of go through. It'll take me 5 minutes to show you what everything is, but in the deeper snowpack sites, like where I worked in Montana and Oregon, Washington, these shelters can be 30 feet tall, right? As can the precip cans and the towers, because we got to get above the snow, right? You're not going to want to dig down to a spot like this and then open the door.
Yeah.
So some of the shelters that I've been in are like 20 feet tall, and they can get pretty dark down in here, when the snow's 12, 16 feet deep. Or whatever. So sometimes you got to dig down. Unfortunately, this is not a year where we have to dig down to get in the shelter. Just a few boot swipes work.
Yeah.
But with that, you also want your manometer to be that tall, because if the precip's going to get that high, your manometer is also going to get that high, right? So that's what these manometers are. You can see the fluid level in here, right? See that moving? So that's pink is for the pillow, and green over here is for the precip can. And I can see how high it is, and I can check records from the last time we were here, and I can tell you how much it's rained since we were here in June. So that's doable. What we have here, this is the transducer, right? So a transducer takes a physical signal of some sort, usually with a strain gauge like this has. It's got a strain gauge in there, and as this manometer builds up, same thing over here. As this manometer builds up, that strain gauge is stretched out, and it changes the electrical current and voltage that goes through it. And then the brains here pings it every hour and says, "Hey, how much strain you got on there?" And it tells it through a variable voltage, and then sends that back to the brain.
So what is that water level at there?
So right now it is at 20.3, and the zero on it is 14.5. So 20.3 minus 14.5 is, what is that? 5.8. Is that right? Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Oh, doesn't matter.
I'll take your word for it.
So we got 5.8 inches of water
You said since June?
since it first started snowing. Yep, on the pillow.
Yeah.
So this is of water in the snow.
Yeah.
The only thing we need to do is a slight adjustment for the alcohol in here. The SG, the specific gravity, is different, so I would just need to adjust for that here. The best part is, though, is out there. Actually, no, we don't need to do that here. My bad. We don't need to do that because we're just taking the difference of the increase. So it should only be of the water that's in there. It's when we're doing our calibrations on the
And
on
so
the
that's
sensors.
sealed. It doesn't none of the water evaporates.
It can't. It is not sealed. So it could evaporate, but we don't find that it does.
Okay.
I mean, we do put a slick of oil on there to prevent it from evaporating. Same thing with over here, but I've never seen it go down. And if it were to evaporate out of here, the pillow would just keep replenishing it. There's 150 gallons in there.
Okay.
So it's
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, good, very good question. Yeah, evaporation is something we're a little bit more worried on the precip can, but for the most part, the oil that we use does not
Okay.
allow much evaporation. Arizona, New Mexico, you see what okay, so this guy, this is the data logger. It's the brains, and we program it to ping the sensors as needed. In this case, it's every hour, and it pings the transducers, it pings the snow depth sensor, the wind sensor, collects that data. That data goes back to the brain and is stored in the brain until it's time at the top of the hour, or right away, technically, for the mouth of the site to then transmit. This is a cell modem. It's basically your cell phone without a screen and much more rudimentary. This cell modem has a wired connection to the antenna up there, and it just sends out the data every hour. So it's pretty much real time. It just takes a few seconds for that data to come out. You'll see it. Now, that's the process here. Once the cell modem sends the data out, it's got to go through a server collected. That server then picks it up, downloads it into our databases, and then populates in the database. So it takes a few minutes, but usually it's pretty quick.
And so if the brain malfunctions, are you the person that repairs it, or do you have someone that's I don't know, what's your computer data knowledge to repair?
Yeah, great question. I am not super savvy in these.
It looks complicated.
But it's not too bad. I haven't had the chance to be more privy to programming these guys. But we actually do all of our programming. So Campbell Scientific, based out of Salt Lake, does not do our programming. They just do the calibrations of the data logger itself. So when they go out of calibrations, or every 3 years, we send them back to Campbell to be calibrated. But for the most part, these are pretty sturdy units. They don't really break down much. I mean, sometimes you get the wires will go through troubles, and you just got to come out and replace the wires, or replace the logger, or whatever it is. But for the most part, all of the components are pretty tried and true. we only have to make like maybe 5 to 10 visits a winter because of issues. Actually, I'd probably say it's less than that.
Okay.
Because whether it's this or it's another sensor or something like that, we've actually gotten really good about maintaining our equipment and network. But it does happen. But yeah, for the most part, we're the ones that do all of it. We don't send Campbell out here. We don't send Verizon out here. We don't send Sutron out here to come do any of our maintenance. It's all us. So last little bits and pieces, batteries. These are pretty much car batteries. Slight modification. This is these are solar regulators. I'm not sure if you guys have a camper or a rig or something like that, but you have a solar regulator because the voltage coming off of your solar panels is too much, so you got to tone it down, and then that makes it 12 to 14 volts to power your batteries. So that's all this is. This is just a mux board. It's just a wiring board. All these wires put off the sensor. There are soil moisture sensors here, so there's 5, 2, 4, 8, 20, and 40-inch depths with all the things that I mentioned before.
There's no camera here, right?
That's right.
Okay.
We had considered putting a camera in at 2 sites, but it's got to go into the cell site. You're the one that asked the question.
No, yeah, it wasn't.
It's got to go into the cell site because that data logger won't store that much data. I mean, what we store here is text strings of all the data. That's it. It's super rudimentary. So a camera, we got to telemeter it out every time, and there's a different server that we got to send it to. We've had a little bit of trouble. All right, so here's report generator, which is the tool that you use to get data. You can build data feeds if you know how to use Java. You can do it with Java and Python, right? There's ways to download the data, so you won't even have to go through this. You can just create a direct feed to the data, and then if you have your own models or tools that you want to create, you can do that. But this is report generator. And it's a way to get to the data in a tabular format, right? With 3 bars, I could probably do it. This is the IMAP. Have you guys ever used IMAP?
Maybe.
So I stands for interactive map.
Yeah.
Right. So you can click on any of the basins. So you can click on the Colorado headwaters if you want. It says that it's 53% of median as of this morning. You can click on it, and a graph like this will come up.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that graph, and it shows you what the time series of the snowpack is for the year, and you can click on multiple years and compare them to other years. This is actually of this morning. As of this morning, you can see the black line, which is this year, is actually in the white area below the lowest line. So right now, the Colorado headwaters, I think this is what I took, is the lowest in the 41-year period of record that this site has been collected.
This site was put in the early 80s or something? Late 70s?
Well, so I can't remember. I'd have to look. I looked 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, and I forgot. I think this one was put in 1981, if I recall correctly. And there is an old snow course, I think, somewhere around here, but I don't know. I think it is one of the older ones, but it's been discontinued. So the Colorado headwaters actually, now I'm misremembering. The Colorado headwaters, I think, does have data going back to 1981 for the entire graph, and we are still lower than even that, if I recall correctly. So the Colorado headwaters is not a great spot. But here, and back to your question from earlier, one of the reasons this is on a pass, right? And not coincidentally, it's on a pass between the Atlantic and the Pacific, right? We're on the continental divide. So it is, I mentioned that we put it in the snow accumulating areas, but not only is this a snow accumulating area, but it is also accumulating for 2 major basins, right? So this site is used in forecasts in the South Platte and then on down into the Missouri. And then this is used also for the Colorado. So all the way down to Lake Powell and whatnot. So, putting the sites on divides has extra utility in the multiple basins.
Cool.
So, you can turn on years that you want to include, you want to exclude. You can make those kind of comparisons. There's also projection graphs that can show what's happened in the past and what's kind of likely to happen going forward. Let's see what else do I got. And that's pretty much it. So like I was saying, all of this data is available.
So cool.
Yep.
Okay.